like one.
Okay, ready?
Ready?
Set.
Well, I don't have a gavel tonight. I guess we'll go ahead and start the meeting without one. I would like to excuse Councilmember Watson this evening. She had a family commitment that she was kind enough to put in writing her perception on some of the things we'll be discussing tonight. But I'd like to excuse her. And with her being excused, she was assigned to give the invocation or thought and the Pledge of Allegiance. So I will go ahead and do that if that's okay. Just a short thought before I say an invocation. I remember the Chief Operating Officer at Harmon's had this displayed visually in his office, and it's something that I've always remembered. And I think that you as the council, this is relevant as you move forward with the issues in the city and some of the decisions that you'll be facing. The plaque said, "Nothing is impossible." The impossible just takes a little longer. And so, you know, if you have a mindset to get it done, or some from the Louisiana would say, "Get her done," all things can happen. And you guys have done a good job in moving North Ogden forward. And so just keep that in your hat, that nothing is as impossible as we face some of those challenges. With that, I'd also like to offer an invocation, then I'll read in the Pledge of Allegiance. Our Father in heaven, we approach thee this evening with gratitude for all thou hast blessed us with. We're grateful for this great city in which we live and for those citizens who make it an awesome place. Grateful for those who have chosen to serve on the city council, and pray a blessing upon them and upon their families. Pray for a blessing upon our city staff. And please bless them for the great work they do and protect them, and particularly our first responders in the area. Please watch over them and bless their families while they may be away. We pray this night that we'll be inspired to make good comments and good suggestions that will address the issues on our agenda that will help us as we move forward in North Ogden. This is our prayer in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
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 I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. We move into our consent agenda now. Having read the agenda this evening, are there any conflicts of interest or concerns you have that you feel needs to be disclosed? I see none, so we'll move on. We need to have a discussion or action to approve the September 9th, 2025 City Council meeting minutes. I'm assuming you got a chance to read those, right? It's been very diligent sending those out on a timely basis and asking for comments on any corrections. Are there any further corrections this evening? Okay, I would look for then a motion to approve the minutes of the September 9th, 2025 City Council meeting.
Mayor, so moved.
Thank you, Councilmember Pulver.
Second.
Thank you, Councilmember Sedley. Any further discussions or comments? All in favor of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion passes unanimously. We welcome those who have joined us online this evening. I see, from what I can see on Zoom, we have Casey Hunsaker. We have the famous Dylan, our inspector. And we have Sarah Lansing, who has been kind enough to join us and give us some insight on her comments prior to this evening. So John, if you would just keep us posted on if anyone online would like to make comments. So we appreciate you joining us, those who are here in person for our work session this evening, and appreciate your interest in our city. We'll go to our active agenda now. seeking public comments. Anyone here, we'll start with anyone here who would like to make a comment. If so, just kind of stand up there at the end of the table. State your name if you're a resident of North Ogden. And please comply with our maximum 5-minute time frame on comments.
Sandy Cochran, North Ogden resident. I'm just relaying a message for a friend who wants you to know that there are several utility boxes on Washington covered with graffiti. That's it.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Anyone else here who would comment? If not, Sarah, we'll,
Did we want to say that the ones that are wrapped, we can kind of do something about, but if they're not, then it's
our company.
the power company.
Mhm.
So that's the problem. Cause I was looking at it too, cause there's a lot that were covered.
There's the Regency sign also that's had paint on it forever.
Of course, that's, I don't know.
That's in Ogden.
Yeah, it's an Ogden.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Cause 1,500 is more.
It's
That is
fairly
correct.
Ogden.
Okay.
But I keep thinking like you, that Eric's
Yeah.
gonna get it done.
But the question would be, you know, for city beautification, at some point in time, do you want to look at maybe wrapping those or whatever, seeing if we can get some donations from businesses that might be interested in beautifying the city or something of that nature? We should probably put that on the list, Ryan, for discussion sometime to see if the council has interest.
I can't remember there was a reason why they wouldn't do everything, because I have a big nasty green box in my front lawn. And I'm like, hey, you know, what can we do to wrap this? Oh, you can't do that. Oh, all right. But
Who said that? The power company or John?
I don't remember. It's been
John
on
is
so long.
also the power company.
Anyways, but if they figure out how to do that, I'd love to know too.
Yeah,
So.
well, why don't we do a
Green
little
monster.
investigation and see what is possible and what the council would like to do? Okay? Now, Sarah, we're gonna allow you to talk and make some comments.
Thank you. My name is Sarah Lansing, and I am a North Ogden resident. I come to you today to talk about a need in our community that can improve our parks and trails and promote active transportation in our city. The good news is that it's a very low-cost solution. The issue at hand is that we have very few or no bike racks in our parks or along trails where people want or need them. I've included a map of North Ogden with all the racks labeled and gave that to the council. We have quite a few parks and trails that don't have any bike racks at all. So why is this a problem? Anyone can ride a bike to a park. We encourage people to use active transportation like bikes, but we don't provide the infrastructure to allow people to stay in the parks with their bikes. Without a place to secure your bike or even a place to park it, most people will either choose to drive a car or not linger in the parks longer than a few minutes. Mountain bikes can be over $5,000. The average e-bike is around $2,000. Most people don't feel comfortable leaving a bike not secured, even for a few minutes, and I totally get that. So, I own an e-bike, but I don't ride it to the 2750 trailhead, an easy couple mile ride, because there's no place to park it or secure it, while I go for a hike, even for, half an hour, an hour. Even if I rode my bike there with the intention of riding it on the trail, where would I secure it if I needed to use the restroom? So I would go so far as to say that we actively discourage bikes in our parks and trails by not having bike racks or any visible bike parking areas. I want to add that I do know that there's a new bike rack at the Orton Green Acres Park in the parking stall. This is the only bike rack put in a park in the last 5 park renovations. It's not a permanent fixture and can be removed at any time. Not even our Waterworks experience has a bike rack, despite its lack of parking lot or close proximity to a walking trail. A year ago in 2024, as the last act of the North Ogden Parks and Trails Committee, we purchased a permanent wave bike rack for the city. We had a suggestion of putting it near the trail crossing in McGriff Park, but the ultimate decision of placement is up to the Parks Department. We helped identify a problem in the city, communicated it, and tried to help solve it in a tangible way. I personally brought the bike rack to the Public Works building last fall and donated it to the city, and it hasn't been installed that we know of or has been communicated to us to date. So I have a couple recommendations. It's twofold. My first recommendation would be to add a simple permanent bike rack that can hold at least 5 bikes, enough for a family, um, even one that could hold up to 7 to 9 bikes, to existing parks that have none, putting them in a visible place with a sign that clearly states bike parking. That signals to our community that we want them to ride their bikes to our parks and trails. This in turn promotes physical activity, reduces wear and tear on the road, and gives people without access to car, like kids, a place to go independently or with their families. It also aligns with the North Ogden Active Transportation Plan and General Plan. My second recommendation is that we include bikes in the planning stages of our new parks or renovation project and parks for the future, instead of adding them after the fact or making an addition contingent on extra funds. This would allow adequate, thought out areas to place the bike rack at a time that's convenient to install them, like when concrete is being put in sidewalks or access ways. It could also allow us to save money by purchasing the bike rack with the playground equipment, less than 1% of the total cost of the equipment, allowing us to not have to pay separate shipping costs. I've also given the council a couple price quotes for a permanent white leaf bike rack that can hold 7 bikes. These can be purchased from many online stores or can be purchased through manufacturers of playgrounds, but the price is a lot higher for those. Online, these cost about $300 to $500. So I urge you to consider this important, much needed addition to our parks. The benefits are greater than the $300 to $1,000 investment that we put in each park and can have lasting effects in the way our citizens and guests utilize and enjoy the outdoor spaces recreationally and communally. So thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Sarah. Very well prepared, and thanks for sending that to us in advance. Council, I don't know how you want to handle this. I think it's a good idea to have bikes and bike racks in our parks.
I honestly thought that there were, but obviously I wasn't looking that closely, so.
It's probably just an oversight as we renovated the parks. But John, maybe you could do some research on the costs and bring that to the council in a follow-up meeting. I think it makes a lot of sense unless anybody objects to
Especially the trailhead too, yeah.
having a
I saw that.
discussion on it. I think our point of having them secured, permanent, is relevant too, so. If we could put that on the agenda for future discussion, once we get the costs, I'm sure we can find the money in the capital projects fund. Doesn't sound like it's overly expensive, but I think it's meaningful. Can you do that, John? Get us
Yep.
information, bring that back to the council for discussion. Thank you very much, Sarah. Anyone else here like to comment, or anyone else on the line? Okay, we will move forward then with our agenda. And Scott Hess, our Community and Economic Development Director, will be leading this discussion. I think we have some of the applicants here who may want to participate at some point in time. This is regarding a potential rezone and development agreement for Arrow Leaf Meadows. Scott?
Yep, thank you very much, Mayor and Council. So 2 weeks ago or so, you received a concept plan from the applicants talking about an annexation area. It's currently in the unincorporated, and I realized I left out the parcel number. So these are parcel 17-075-0016 owned by DeLon Atkinson and 17-075-0036 owned by Chad and Amy Pauling. Those are 2 pieces of property, approximately 1950 North and Fruitland Drive without Fruitland specific access. And if you know all the names of the subdivisions, as we all should, right, and studied those, it's between Fernwood on the north, Ivory Homes Ward Farms on the south, and then Quail Ponds, which is currently developing both 5 and 6 to the west. And these 3 subdivisions, it's a really interesting part of the city because you have 1/3 of an acre lots on the north, 1/4 acre lots on the south, and then 5,000 square foot lots on the west, which is about 8 units to the acre or so. The application as it's been put in has conceptualized 68 lots at about 4,500 to 6,000 square foot per lot. So it fits in more with the Quail Ponds area, and it's an infill development on this little piece of unincorporated county. And we've had several discussions back and forth with the applicant, and we recommended it was worth bringing to the council, discussing with you all any ideas, potential pitfalls, or other concerns that you might have before an annexation application is provided. Annexation is a legislative item, as you all know, so this is an area where you can do specific zoning, you can make development agreements happen, you can do a whole lot of things that are outside of just the standard zoning code. Or another option is to recommend that we write an update to the code, whether in the residential R15 or an R14 or something else along the lines of the Shaw Century Farm where it's specific to one property. So there's a choose your own adventure book of options that we can do here on this piece of property. And I just want to bring up several of the issues that we have talked about with the applicant, and then they provided the exhibit that's in your staff report for their responses and items here. So I'm going to run through these discussion items, ask for questions, and then we do have the applicants here if you have any questions. The first is long-term planning and general plan consistency. So general plan future land use map has an entire area that's highlighted yellow, and the yellow is single family, and it's kind of the full range of our single family zones. So it doesn't have specific guidance that says within this area of the city, it should be 10,000 square foot lots. It's more the ability context based for the council to decide what the right zone is. And it would really come from the planning commission making a recommendation and then the city council weighing that recommendation from the planning commission. In this particular case, the project is, you've got a steep slope on the right, on the east side, you've got wetlands delineated on the west side. And I think a context sensitive solution is the right option here. So some sort of infill project, whether it's this density or something similar to it, makes more sense than just large lot single family zones in the area to staff. But again, that's a planning commission and the city council item to consider. Groundwater and dewatering. So when we had the major rainstorm event several weeks ago, this was an area that surface flooded essentially. The homes are proposed as slab on grade. We know that there's water and it's just physically wet out on site. And we've recommended just a complete due diligence regarding stormwater on the site, but ultimately development on a site that's as wet as this would dewater the site. It would help mitigate and manage the stormwater that currently is just sheet flowing off of the property where it would be caught in a detention basin. It would be flowed off of the site at our standard public works requirements, and it would help to dewater and improve the site as a whole. It's an infill project. The developer's requesting 4,500 to 5,500 square foot lots. We talked about the surrounding area. We do have and have recommended that 925 East be a through street. It's a public street. That would be a 60-foot right of way from north to south, connecting Ward Farms on the south up to Fernwood on the north. Staff had tried to work with Quail Ponds Phase 6 to get a connector east-west into that neighborhood to the west, but since this already had two stubs in it, there was no obligation of the developer to make that happen. It just was a request that didn't happen. So where the hammerhead is with lots 12, 13, 14, 15, just on the other side of that is a 90-degree turn from the subdivision to the west that we would have liked to see a road connect through. With that not being a connection, it really creates a strange narrow piece on the west side that the private drive is probably the only practical way to develop that. And city engineer has weighed in on this, and at least at a concept level is comfortable with the single-sided sidewalk and narrower asphalt width in this area, knowing that all of that would be maintained by the homeowners association and our snow plows that only need to run that north-south on 925 East. We have the moderate income housing plan to think about. So this project could potentially contribute toward the city's efforts to provide attainable housing. I don't think that this will likely reach the 80% affordable and truly affordable number, where the governor's pitch of hitting single family standalone homes at about $400,000 to $450,000. But we could certainly hit attainable housing. All of the projects as stated would be for sale products to the first seller, so no rentals. We would you could make that an item through the development agreement to assure all properties are sold instead of rented. The deed restriction on that first purchase to owner occupied units, followed by a homeowners association, I think would help control that. The HOA would become self-regulating after that point to make sure that several of them, 4, 5, 6, or 10 of these homes don't get purchased up by one investment company and run as consistent permanent rentals. The units will begin at about 1,600 square feet. And I don't want to put a number out there for what sells, but if you look at what is on Utah Real Estate, this is no guarantee this is what they would sell for, but Utah Real Estate puts North Ogden's home pricing at about $300 a square foot. So a 1,600-foot unit would be about $480,000 for a potential sales price. And that's land and structure all together. So it gives you kind of a range or an idea of what if they were to exist today and be posted on Utah Real Estate or on the MLS, that's approximately where we'd be. The developer is not recommending or asking for a height restriction, but as staff, one of the things we've talked about is some of these small lot subdivisions have had homes that maximize the building envelope on the lot. So you have these small lots with large homes on the lot, eating up any real backyard, side yard, front yard, and then they're tall as well. So these homes are at least 30 feet for the 2-story homes. I think when you look at the house plans, it's about 29 feet. This site is relatively flat, so we don't have to deal with the uphill, downhill lot calculus like we have in some of the other areas of the city. But that may be a consideration for the council to just not make the homes be too large on the lot or potentially restricting the setbacks to control the footprint of the home, knowing they won't have basements, so you don't end up with 3,500 square foot homes on 4,500 square foot lots. Standard setbacks are recommended to apply to limit the massing and avoid oversized homes. And then open space. This is an area that is near Orton Park and the Green Acres Elementary School to the west. It's a small property. It's up to the council again, but kind of a hard ask with an infill property like this to ask for a real public facing park space. But I do think that either the detention pond or some level of tot lot or small open space within the project makes a lot of sense. You have really pretty good internal network connectivity with sidewalks throughout the surrounding neighborhoods to get you over to Orton Park or Green Acres, which would be the primary open space that this accesses. But staff's recommendation is that at a minimum, the detention pond have some sort of HOA maintained and owned small tot lot. Fruitland right of way, this is the last item that we've talked about. It has a connecting piece again between Ward Farms and Fernwood. And this is the little missing section on the west side of Fruitland that doesn't have sidewalk right now. So as you come up from the 2100 North and Fruitland intersection heading south, you see the sidewalk and then the gap. So the recommendation staff has for Fruitland in this area is to meet the cross section that the neighboring north and south property owners have done. So add a sidewalk on the west side. But ultimately, Fruitland will be looked at by the planning commission and it will come to the council. It's one of the few major streets we have that doesn't have a standardized cross section. So Mountain Road has one, 2600 North, Washington Boulevard, all have a standard cross section. So when any development happens there, we know what's to be expected and what is to be built. Fruitland is a context sensitive road. Again, it's one of our old historical narrow agricultural roads, and we like it that way. I think there's a lot of people who see that and that it represents North Ogden to them. So some of the ideas that we've talked about, and it's kind of larger than this particular annexation discussion, is should we standardize a curb to curb asphalt width, just so there's a consistency of asphalt, but then anything that happens that's sidewalk or behind the curb is less standardized. So in many areas, it makes sense to have a single-sided wider path on maybe the east side of the roadway because of the grades. To put a sidewalk on the west side, the sidewalk would be floating in space in many areas, or grade separated significantly. And if you start to do that and you widen the right of way out to a full 60 or 66 feet, the impact that it has on those driveways that right now come off the narrower asphalt, they'd be, like falling off a really steep cliff into garage doors. So I think that there will be some sensitivity to how that road is developed in the future. And these little infill pieces like this give us a chance to begin that discussion, because if we don't start thinking about it, then we'll just end up with a real mix and match along the entire corridor, as opposed to planning for it today and then building it out. Because maybe sidewalk, curb and gutter on both sides isn't what the ultimate desire for Fruitland Drive looks like. So those are a few of the items. The developer in their project overview really addressed most of those items, but I would welcome any questions and comments and then have them here to discuss. This is pre-annexation, so we're not asking for a decision tonight, but more a discussion around it and around some of these items like infill development, how the general plan, single family zone looks at applying specific zones or smaller zoning. And then I think we're going to see more projects like this that are mixed, maybe exchanging smaller lots for private infrastructure. I mean, we have to maintain far less of this than we do in a standard subdivision. It's just a couple 100 feet really of 925 East is the only piece of infrastructure we would own. Everything else would be private and maintained by the HOA. And that seems like a pretty good trade-off as opposed to adding more cul-de-sacs, additional roadway, additional asphalt curb gutter that we have to maintain in perpetuity. But it's a council decision what we want the city to look like for these infill pieces of property. So with that, welcome any questions and start that discussion.
Councilmember Bowler, you have a question?
Yeah, in the packet, there's a zoning variance exhibit. I guess that's the question. So are we going away from the R15 to have different setbacks and building heights? And you were talking a little bit about that, but.
Yeah, so R15 was written essentially for Legacy, the project that's just south of City Hall. And so we have some other development that's happened in R15, but it was just sort of, it wasn't specifically for R15. Quail Ponds is an example. So Quail Ponds is a planned unit development that has its own code. So when you go into Title 11, there's Quail Ponds. And staff we'd like to get away from creating specific land use designations for one neighborhood, essentially. And so I think this is a chance to either amend the R15 or consider an R14 or an R14.5, something that's a little bit more flexible than R15 is specifically, because each one of them have been written for a project. So there's two ways, really two ways that we can do this. And it depends, the application can happen the same way. So you could have annexation, the application happen, and a zoning text amendment happen, so they run concurrently. And then if the planning commission agrees with that legislative recommendation, it all comes to the council. And you would take action on two different items. One would be the annexation, and the other would be application of a zone. It would be a conditional approval, say we got that to that point, and then you would create the new zoning designation. Otherwise, you have to bring them in under either a development agreement or a standard zone that we already have.
So I guess if you're within a certain R15, for example, if you can't meet that, then or have a different way of doing things, then you have to come up with something. And either, like you said, you don't want to plan it per.
Mm-hmm.
You just but coming up with a different designation, isn't that the same sort of thing? If you're doing it, you could have 95 different zones.
Yeah.
Or I mean,
which we kind of do, and
yeah,
so
and that's kind of
it's an interesting thing. So the Century Farm Zone exists on our books. So somebody could technically apply for a rezone of any area of the city to the Century Farm Zone. And that was a zone written for the Century Farms, which is up on the old public works site, Pleasant View Drive. Quail Ponds is another code that exists. Roylands Farms is another code that exists. That's 1900 north going west, just south of Lock It Up Storage. That development that was built in the late 90s, early 2000s has a specific zone where, again, you could apply for. It's not better, worse, or indifferent. It's just how we want to do things. When there are cities with dozens of residential zones, and it's because they operate this way. And there's other cities who combine them all down. So you have 8 or 10 total, and then you just fit into those areas. And maybe there's some area with flexibility.
So it wouldn't be a variance to a zone, it would just be a new zone.
Yeah, variance is a really specific loaded word from Utah State. So it's more like these are the ways that this request varies from R15.
So
Okay.
let me ask you, are you done, Councilman? Paul?
Yes.
What would the cost, sales price have to be to qualify in our community for affordable housing under the state? You know,
It,
it's like
We don't-
400.
it's 80% of our area median income, and then what you can afford on that. So it depends on what the interest rates are that day. So I can't give you a total cost number. It's more about a mortgage amount that you can make each month.
Yeah.
And this has been my, kind of one of the gripes that I've had about moderate income housing, saying this is the amount a house should be. Because in 2021, a $400,000 house at 2.75% interest is exceptionally affordable. And today at 6% interest, that is
Well,
far
it
less.
seems like Nielsen Homes, they set that sales price out there at 380 to 400
Right.
to qualify.
And that's based on the context of Northwest Beaver County and its area median income.
Yes. I think our median income might be a little bit higher.
Private. Yeah.
So it would be nice if these could have a sales point that
Yeah.
met that affordable housing
Mhm.
issue. And,
Yeah, I agree.
you know, many of you know, I just built a home in the last 2 years and it's not slab on grade. But, you know, with landscaping, everything, I'm in at $242 a foot.
Mhm.
So if these are 1,700,
Mhm.
is there any way that these can be made to qualify? Because we don't have really any in the city.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to take away profit from the developer, but,
Sure,
you know, we do have a relatively high income.
right.
And, you know, I don't think building these would be $300 a square foot value. I'm not a builder, but
And
I didn't cut any corners really on my house.
And you've got, I mean, the further up you move, that lot costs are significant.
Well, yeah, the lot
right?
cost would be a lot significantly more than this, because it's almost a half acre.
It's hard, you know, this zoning isn't a tool that guarantees affordability very well.
No, but it
So
could
that
be
would be a
helpful.
discussion in here, and absolutely, at 1,700 square feet at $250 per foot, it's $425,000. And that would be well within the realm of
At
attainable.
least some of them, not necessarily all, but if we could get a combination of say 10% or 15% of them being in that sales price range.
Mhm.
I don't know if that's possible. I'm just thinking out loud, but it'd be very helpful for our city because we really don't have anything.
No.
You know, Ryan lives in, his is about 1,800 square feet. And they're selling for like 425. Slab on grade.
Right.
They're connected, but the yards are about the same size. So I don't know. I'm just asking the question if that could be considered as at least some of the homes in here being in that price range to help people who are trying to get started in the.
I have yet, I've been in several of the legislative policy committee meetings and with the League of Cities and Towns. I haven't seen anybody zone for a specific sales price yet, but I'm aware of, I mean, there's like maybe a cap, but again, zoning isn't the tool that does that real well, but there's the desire to hit a moderate income housing number, or the other has just been negotiating the number that are owner occupied versus rentals.
Let me ask this question. Is there a prohibition zoning for that if you create a new zone?
I don't know.
Say,
You can only sell for up to X
well,
amount.
a certain percentage of them, not all of them, because the builders in business to make money.
Sure.
No doubt about that, but, you know, thinking about our city and thinking about the citizen, it'd be nice to have a product that has a sales point that's affordable and would be helpful to the city with the state.
Yeah.
Doing that, so maybe when you get up, you could address that. What other questions may Councilmember Delpaz?
I had a couple things I had written down. On the west side of the development, it seems like for connectivity, it would make sense to just keep the road going to the west. What is the actual reason that it's ending the way that it is? Cause it just seems like it would make sense to have a road to nowhere until it connects through.
I'm gonna ask John, can you pull up the Weaver County GIS? Because Quail Ponds Phase 6 should be recorded, and then you can get a good visual of the current road and how that subdivision was recorded.
Cause it looks
Basically,
like
you-
there's already a turnaround there for Quail Ponds for their subdivision.
It used to be, and
Or-
now it's a connected road.
Okay,
So
maybe
you-
the
You'd have to
satellite
purchase a
image.
lot, yeah.
Okay.
They just asphalt for that.
I just hate when we lose an opportunity to make the neighborhoods make more sense like this. It's just, I know that timing is everything and it can be, but it always frustrates me when we miss those opportunities.
So the timing in this one, was it not recorded yet, John?
But you can, the road goes like
Yeah,
this.
it turned,
So since this satellite image was done, there's now a road there. Okay,
they haven't.
I haven't been there recently.
He's been doing his improvements, so he has not recorded yet, doesn't have building permit. But you would lose a lot on the east side, and the way road connectivity, as far as I understand, works is you can't create any non-buildable pieces of ground that don't have connections. So both the Pauling property and the Atkinson property both have public street stubs that touch them. And for that reason, they can develop. So we couldn't require Quail Ponds to provide the secondary stub.
Okay, and then one of my other thoughts is, I mean, in a sense, I like the idea of the roads being private, but we recently had a development that came to us and they had their issues where they hadn't been saving enough in their HOAs for years. And they had approached the city to say, hey, can you now take over our streets? That's what they would like. So I don't know how we could ensure that this HOA would be managed in a way where that is never a problem. And it just kind of strikes me as difficult to make a lot or a home attainable or affordable in a development that is an HOA because it's an added cost. So that's part of the equation to me is they might be able to afford the mortgage just fine, but then you add $100 or $200 extra or however much that HOA is, and then they're almost to the same cost that it would be to go to another development that doesn't have an HOA. So that's kind of something that's going around in my mind. On the top, maybe this isn't even the point for this discussion, but what does it mean so where it says no existing land drain or storm drains are stubbed in those roads, is that saying that the previous developer should have done that or not?
It's, whether they should have or shouldn't have is always based on the specific piece of ground, so I won't weigh in on previous like capital projects or facility stuff they should have done. But it's more of I guess it's like a fair warning or a due diligence that you don't have an existing land drain system to just connect and grab onto. There is a private drain that gets water off of this project through Ward Farms. But as Eric Casperson, our city engineer's notes, I think he was just trying to help the developer be aware of what they have existing on site.
Okay,
We have several areas.
but it's not anything that we have to worry about. It's for them to figure out.
Yeah, and we have areas that are fully land drained and the land drain runs out basically into like a stormwater system and then it's picked up in the detention basins. And it isn't required everywhere, but it just depends on the piece of property and getting water off of the site.
Okay,
Is that what you mean by dewatering?
Yeah, so it's just
Okay.
literally like drying the property out enough to get it to work.
Yeah.
And this one is, there are Army Corps delineated wetlands on site, so that would need to be probably mitigated through the purchase of other ground in a mitigation building. That's one wetland process. We don't deal with that. That's all Army Corps. But lots 15 through 20 on the northwestern edge there. There's some delineated wetlands in that general area of this. But it's just soppy and wet and swampy. It's just a very wet piece of ground. So that's why you can't have, maybe you could, there's enough money, you can engineer anything according to Eric Casperson. So, but no basements makes a lot of sense here. And then once you start having landscaping, grass does a really good job of sucking up water, and people's landscaping just generally usually helps rather than surface running water off of the site. And then the detention pond will do a huge service to this entire area to grab all that water and hold it and then meter it out at the right rate.
So there's no way you stick a park in there, because that was
I think we
talked
have a
about.
hard time.
Yeah.
And then everything else is just the cost ratio of what is the land cost and what's the for sale cost and all the improvements. And then can you get an open space? And that's something we talked about that this area of the city is under parked or under open space, I think, kind of generally. But is this the right infill parcel to put a park on? And I don't think we'd want a public, and we don't want a bunch of little mini public parks. So we're recommending at minimum a little private play structure, open space.
God, refresh my memory, but isn't the project Wilson, that's an HOA, it's a
Nielsen?
minimal
Uh-huh.
for yard maintenance
Yep,
out there, and they met the requirements, right?
they did, and I think, but they've got like
But are their
200,
roads wider or something? Are they city roads?
they've got public roads, and then they have, there's just many more of them. I think it's like
200,
2 to 400 units or something.
There's a lot.
Well, they got a significant increase in density to make those units affordable.
And when there's more of them, the HOAs tends to be a little more solid. The small, this is a relatively small HOA, and it's always a concern of mine. I brought that up at a certain point in this discussion and brought up Legacy North, asking us to take the road back over. That's a 20-year from now problem, but I don't want to just kick that can down the road. You do want to make sure the HOA is going to be able to.
I want a list of all HOA board meetings that are going on in the city, so I can just pop in and say, hey, reminding you, you gotta save for these roads.
Take care of these.
Actually, that would be terrible. I don't wanna go to all those meetings.
What other questions, council, do you have? I think the developers have some comments they'd like to make. Is that true? Is there an appropriate time?
You want to take it, bring a chair up? Sure.
Evening, Mayor, Council. My name is Garrett Seeley, and this is Derek Terry. And just a quick background with who we are. I've been in this business since 2002. Worked with Woodside Homes way back then. That's where I was formerly trained. Went out on my own and then went back to Woodside Homes after they went through a little tough time with bankruptcy and different things to kind of get them back on solid ground, and then left to form my own company back in 2019. That's where Derek and I met. And Derek,
Woodside Homes.
At Woodside Homes, that's correct. And since then, Derek had left and we formed a company together. We represent a handful of builders that we feel very confident in. We go and find land for them. We get it developed or get it approved, go through this process, and then partner with them to build houses and develop the land. So you can kind of see what we're doing here, that we're not, a broker that's gonna get it approved and sell it real quickly. We're gonna see it all the way through. And whatever promises we make through development agreement, through zoning, whatever it is, we're gonna make sure that those are followed through with the builder that we bring in tow. So we're not gonna leave the city high and dry like some others that may do that. So Derek, do you want to start with some of the questions? Which questions do you want us to answer first? Maybe I should feel that out.
Starting the first one, so our intent with our application would be with the general plan identifying this as a low density area. We've identified the R15 zone that can be done in that low density area. And with to make it more attainable, a little bit more affordable, we've identified in the zoning variance exhibit the 4 differences that we would ask for in the development agreement to that zone. So we're just taking that base zone, doing the vast majority of what's established and what the city's already has in that zone with those 4 changes. And we need the development also, and that would be outlined in the development agreement. We'd also need that development agreement to outline how the roads and the private roads and everything like that. So either way, we need a development agreement, but we're saying we're taking the base R15 zone, making these 4 changes to that in the development agreement to get to the concepts we have.
And those 4
there.
changes are in your packet that we sent to you and also a part of this exhibit. So
And again, part of it was kind of highlight a little bit the affordability of it. With these private roads being reduced, I mean, a major cost of any finished lot is that 60-foot right of way. And so we're taking off one side off, we're necking that down, making a private road that would be much cheaper, much more affordable for the end homeowner to pay for in the beginning, but also to address the HOA. Since that, I don't know what was the name of that the subdivision, the HOA that came back to the city said, hey, you need to take care of our roads. That was done, I mean, it was because of that and many other subdivisions that weren't funded correctly at the beginning, that the legislation has come through and said, no, you have to have a study done that says, here's what you have, here's what the HOA is responsible for. And these are the reserves that you have to have from day one, and then the contributions that need to be made along the way to maintain that road. Back in the past, we just kind of, oh, we think, just throw $50 in there and we'll see what we have, and you have these problems. Now it's required to have a third party come in, do a study, and know this is what your maintenance are going to cost. This is the reserve you have to have, and this is the reserve you have to build over time to be able to maintain those roads. And also it sets, and there's more restrictions on, the HOA has to be set up to be able to go through and do maintenance on the road, because as you know, the city maintenance is huge. If you let something go, deteriorates, and a $100,000 problem becomes $1 million problem, to where if you just spend that $50,000 to resurface every so often, you can maintain those roads. And I think that's what happened with other subdivision. They didn't do that preventative maintenance that then put them in the problem they have now. It's where with our subdivision, it would, per the legislation, would have to have that reserve study done, have to have the reserves in hand when every homeowner closes, to put those funds away to be able to maintain those roads properly, so it doesn't become a problem for the city. And again, the reason why we're doing that and the changes we have in that zoning variances of it is to just make it, those small tweaks to make it a little bit more affordable for these smaller lot homes.
So Mayor, to talk to you about, how to deed restrict or to get attainability or whatever it may be. What I would suggest is that we talk to a builder and maybe bring them in with us to see what they're willing to do. Because that's one thing I cannot make a promise on, because I'm not selling the houses. I know what we can get, what the land development costs are going to be, what the land residual value is. And then with their marketing and everything else, they're the ones that are going to have to determine that. I do believe that they'll be starting under $500,000. I don't know how many of them will be, but I know that they will be, and it all depends on upgrades and different things that people want to put in their houses as well, right? So there's a range. Like Scott said, I'd like to know what that number is, because I don't know what your median income is, but I know it's a lot higher than Ogden, than it is in Harrisville, than it is. You know what I mean? I won't talk to them, but I'm just saying it is higher in this corner.
And I'll speak to that a little bit. I mean, we were involved with Woodside. I mean, we did the land, but we'd be involved in pricing and architecture every step of the way. They pulled a land team in. And I mean, they try to, with the companies we work for, the Woodsides and the marriage of different, I mean, with the purchasing power they have, I mean, they try to get the prices, because their whole thing is they don't want to sell a home a month. They want to sell 3 homes a month. The only way to do that is to get that price as low as they possibly can, and to appeal to different buyers. So they'll have, a 1,700 square foot home up to a 22 foot. I mean, people will have the option to get the least,
Least upgraded house,
the bare bones to get in. And then people will have the opportunity to pay more, and so they can offer, a wider market range. But I would be very hesitant to put any kind of restrictions on it, because then we've done this a lot in a lot of different cities, and it comes up a lot. Hey, can we think about this? And when we go to them, it scares them off, because it would require them to artificially decrease the prices of some homes. And then you decide, okay, who gets this artificially decreased price home, to where really if the market just speaks, they're not going to gouge you. They're going to try to keep that price as low as they can, as low as they possibly can, to sell homes quicker. And so the problem kind of takes care of itself with the builders we work with, versus a custom home builder will come in. Okay, I have this lot, I can wait, I can, put as many options and do as many things I have. But these production builders, they can bring the cost down on their own, versus trying to artificially decrease the cost.
The other thing that the home builders that we work with do is they are using their incentive money. Instead of doing upgrades to homes or free washer and dryers or refrigerators, whatever it may be, they are buying down the interest rate to compress that interest rate so that you can afford it for a 5-year term, in hopes that that interest rate dips again to where you can refinance it for a longer term down the road.
And I think rolling out. I mean, speaking back to the private roads, where we kind of designed it, we have that public roads that connects the two communities. So anybody going through that community is on a publicly maintained road, because they're coming from a public road to a public road. And we designed the private streets to branch off that. So the only people they're gonna be using the private streets are the people that own and maintain those streets to decrease their use to where we kept it public going through. So it's not that somebody can say, hey, we're maintaining these private roads, but everybody else is driving through us. No, it's a public road that connects. through
I
it.
hadn't thought of that, so I appreciate that.
Yeah.
That's a good thing, yeah.
That makes more sense.
And again, the design and layout and the things we're asking for is to maximize this piece of land with the restrictions it has of, the narrowness and just the two connections without the connection on the other side. I mean, we spent weeks and weeks working with planners and designers to get it to that spot and to match kind of the average lot size is, I think, 5,500 square foot, to match kind of the area with the quote. We understand that it's smaller than the north and the south, but we wanted something that could fit in and kind of maximize, because every lot you lose, that's one more piece of road and piece of infrastructure that all the other lots have to carry that burden. And the kind of the 68 units is where we feel can carry effectively the burden of those private streets. And that's why we designed it this way.
I foresee one thing that people will be concerned about
Mhm.
in the neighborhoods on the north and the south is the height.
Mm-hmm.
So, is there a way to potentially limit the height on the north boundary and the south boundary and have higher heights available in the middle of the project? So those that purchased their homes there where they thought they were going to have a similar neighborhood behind them can at least not be dealing with extraordinary heights.
Yeah, and prior to this meeting, we came up about an hour early and, driving around the neighborhood, we went and and we'd driven through it before, but we wanted to see what does the surrounding neighborhood look like. And there's multiple 2-stories around there. And what's interesting is too, with those 2 stories, they're artificially high because they have a basement and they had to bring that basement out about 4 feet. So we're looking through, and with the plan that we have, they will be 2-story because they want, we wanted a smaller footprint with a 2-story, and some of them will have the narrower roofs, but we feel like what the plans that we have in there will match with the 2-story homes that are in that area. And even some of the single-story, because they're, so wide that they have such a pitch on them, that they will, the homes we have proposed will fit in with the surrounding neighborhood. They're not going to be these massive towering houses.
I think something that you could look at, that we would. be
But
more happy
to answer your question, we're happy to go through and measure and make sure that we're not, and if we're misinterpreting what these homes around, that their heights are, that we will match that height and won't tower over them.
So
To answer your question.
there's a couple plans that you can see in here, when we pull that up, that if you went with the, what we call the craftsman style, where the roofs, the pitch isn't really super steep. So the top left and the middle right, where those are more on a flatter roof pitch, a 212, what we call it, or a 312 versus a 6 or 712. That wouldn't give you that mass, that big A-frame, right? So you're much smaller. And we could talk to the builders about maybe doing the perimeter in those type styles to help reduce that mass.
But
I'm just trying to predict what complaints we have when the approval
I
process is
think you'll
going
be
through.
very surprised if you go out there and look at it, especially on Ward Farms. That was all filled up, right? That entire site has probably 4 to 5 feet of fill. So if you look at the back of their property line to where the Pauling Atkinson property is, there's boulders and rocks that are stacked up probably 4 to 5 feet.
Oh, so,
Dropped right off.
okay, yeah.
it dips
that's-
on both sides,
On
it
both
dips
sides.
down in,
Yeah.
and
So-
that's why it has the outfall for the storm drain at the bottom, that private piece. So all it is made, right, it's kind of a little bit of a bowl, it comes down in and then drains out that private thing, so they will sit a little
So
lower.
if you
than
stay
the
at
ground.
grade level, right, if you imagine the grade level, you've already gained 4 to 5 feet just with the fill that they brought in. And then you put a 2-story in there. I really believe that you won't be any higher than their single story as it is now.
That makes sense.
Oh, Chris.
Nope, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I'm kind of curious. I think I talked to Derek. I've been in real estate for quite a while in my life. What, tell us what builders you're looking to work with.
Right now, Woodside, Merited, kind of those production builders.
And Oakwood Homes.
Have you done any local developments here in the area?
If you want to go to Clinton, off of 2000 West and 2400 North. Both Meritage and Woodside are doing project on either side of 2000 West there in Clinton. We did both of those projects for them,
2000 west and what?
2400 North.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. You can see Woodside's there currently doing townhome.
Shoreline.
Single.
The Shoreline's a good example, it has a lot of these plans, Shoreline in Syracuse.
We did that for them as well.
Okay, thank you. And then my next question is, and I know this is, I realize that it's a difficult thing for you to say, well, we think we're gonna be in this price point.
Yeah.
I recognize, what do they call it when you, upgrade? Okay, you upgrade
Yeah.
something. But these are these projects that you've done in Clinton, are they similar to what we have going on? You're proposing with Arrowleaf?
These will be larger lots than what we have in Clinton,
Clinton.
and there's similar sized lots to these in Syracuse with these plans on them.
So what would be kind of a good solid guesstimate on a price per square foot? Based on your experience?
You can probably pull it up and look at it right now.
Good, okay. I just couldn't remember seeing anything on there.
So go to Woodside Homes of Utah
Yeah.
and pull up Clinton.
Okay.
I believe it's called Summerfield.
426.
Per square foot.
Those are on.
No,
3,500.
426,000. Sorry.
Okay, 426,
Sorry.
okay.
How big are they, Chris?
I don't know. I'm just clicking buttons.
And then you also mentioned that there was some HOA legislation.
Mhm.
So you're telling us that by statute, the HOAs are expected to have a certain amount of,
It's a law now. So if you look at
I
that,
never heard of that.
if you look at that bulletin that we sent out to you, there's a whole section in there about homeowners
What year was it
association.
there?
There you go.
And that was done May 5th of 2021. And it cites the title, the chapter, everything there. And it has what you have to do with the reserve site, because this isn't the first case of this happening. This has
Right.
happened multiple places. And I think the real estate board realtors up there really pushed hard, the state legislature to kind of clamp down on this so that this does not keep occurring.
Okay.
Yeah, so,
Just out of curiosity, why an HOA? You're obviously gonna have CCNRs, right?
the private streets will require the HOA.
Private streets would require the HOA.
Yeah.
Cause it sure seems like, in my experience, people are trying to move away from buying HOAs.
Well, it's frustrating because like we said, this property is only 423 feet wide between the two of them. And so if you do a traditional 5,000 square foot lot, a 60-foot right of way, 5,000 square foot lot, 5,000 square foot lot, and a 60-foot right of way, and a 5,000 square foot lot, you lose two of those 5,000 square foot lot because it doesn't fit. Those 60-foot right of ways eat up so much ground that you can't put that density in there. So what you end up having on this property is just one cul-de-sac that would actually make it work.
So, but what does that have to do with having an HOA?
And so to answer your question, the HOA with these smaller private streets, it reduces their initial cost on the lot, but then they do pay that a higher HOA over time. But it allows them to get in the door and have a more affordable lot and home, but then pay,
Over time.
over time, a
Right.
$56 HOA versus paying, $100,000, $200,000 at the beginning.
So is that pretty accurate, John? That's pretty accurate?
Well, I think the smaller street reduces the infrastructure cost.
Okay,
So it's still like when the home is bought, the cost per linear foot of frontage is lower in a scenario like this than it would be on a traditional 60-foot right of way.
And you gotta make sure you're accounting for the smaller right of way, the lesser cost of the road, but also that it doesn't just disappear, it goes into the lot. They gain, instead of having a 60-foot road and not having that smaller road, it's a lesser cost road and then a bigger lot because you're using less land for roads. So it spreads the cost of the entire land. It decreases, if you were to do public roads, you maybe get, I don't know, with a full public right of way, you maybe get 40 versus with that reduced because of the layout, because you can't fit two roads in. But if you do the private with what we propose, then you can get the 68, which then decreases the cost.
and then that requires an HOA.
Yes.
Correct.
Interesting. I guess I'm just, I think, and I should have probably began my conversation by saying, and I think I told you this, Derek. I think it's awesome that you're, looking at an approach to try to make things affordable, right?
Yeah.
I guess just since we've had this experience with, a recent HOA, I guess I'm just a little. I mean, I wonder what kind of accountability this legislation has to make sure that, they are gonna have enough money that if they need to do that in another 15 years.
And the biggest part that I mentioned that was that I believe that legislation requires that reserve study where it wasn't before. It was, my understanding, it was just, what do we think it's gonna be? And the developer, and the home builder could say, artificially say, oh, we want to sell these homes, let's just do it $15. And then 20 years down the road, they say, oh, that wasn't enough. To where now it's a third, it's not, the builder can't decide what it is. They can't say, we're gonna do it, says, we're gonna require this much in reserve. It's that third party that says you have to collect this much, and they do, and they collect a piece of that upfront when they close on the home. That goes into a fund that then can maintain the street.
My son just did that and it's a chunk. It's not like you're
Yeah.
paying monthly thing. No, it's a chunk up front for the first time you bought that.
Right, it's,
Property.
it's not
Transfer fees
something they
and
start at zero and they build over time. They make that
Yeah.
contribution when they close, it goes into that, and then they feed it over time as well.
Interesting.
And that reserve study is updated every 3 years.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah,
not
it's
a
required, yeah.
For each HOA, it's expected.
For
to
each
do
HOA,
that.
that's right.
Interesting. I hadn't
Yeah,
heard
we
that.
just had, my HOA, I live in an HOA, we just had ours done, they had to account for the vinyl fences, and it was expensive, but. And they, once they accounted for that in the update, I think our HOA increased $5, they accounted for, okay, in 10 years, you have to replace all these vinyl fences. And to do that, you have to put an extra, everybody has to pay an extra $5 to cover that in the future.
Interesting. Thank you.
What other questions or comments do you guys have?
Is more related to Fruitland. I don't know if we're done with, because I mean, all the stuff along Fruitland, you'd have to, it's gonna be
Right.
big.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's been done on both sides. They do retaining wall, the stepped retaining wall, and to push it up against there.
That's why we try to give as much depth to those lots so that we can do a couple tiers and give them a buildable area versus a hillside.
And on that same note, in terms of the surrounding areas, as it was kind of brought up, the wetland. If you look on the wetland maps, I mean, what is it to the south of the subdivision? Ward Farms, I mean, it had the same thing. Fernwood, the same. I mean, it's that whole area. It's not it's not unique. What I'm saying is it's not unique to our site. It's been there. And I think our site, our plan, we've had those homes in Fernwood or Ward Farms that flooded because they had those basins where we're saying, no, we're not gonna repeat that problem. We're doing slab on grade.
If it is as wet as we think it is, wouldn't it make sense that you guys would probably be bringing in a bunch of fill dirt? Cause you were saying that it's gonna be lower than the neighborhood to the south of it, but I'm guessing that you guys would have to bring in a certain amount of fill dirt to kind of mitigate that. I don't know.
Right, the way it'll work is the storm drain will be low. I mean, the storm drain's already lower, the outfall is low enough. And then that's what dictates everything in terms of how much fill you have to bring. It's all about the fall of the sewer and the fall of the storm drain. If it's too high, you have to raise it up so you can fall. We're fortunate enough to where the storm drain is low enough to where it can
It all
still
flows to it.
And so it'll stay there, collect in the streets, go to that detention, and then.
And each one of these
flow out.
lots will have its own drain system. So there will be a private drain on the back of the lots. The lot will be graded to it, so all storm runoff, everything will run to that draining to get out, not back up on their lot. The other thing is, a lot of that surface water is coming from the sheriff water that
Yeah.
Atkinson has. He just has it come across the street and leaves the valve open and it just flows to water his cattle.
Yeah, he's
He
just been.
he
having
just
a
let
free
it go
flow.
24/7.
It's not natural water coming out of that site. It's
He brought it.
water being piped into where it can be shut off and just kept at the fish farm.
The fish
I mean,
farm.
that far up, they can just stay up there and not flow onto our site. But yeah, I mean, they just barely they're doing the geotech right now to get an idea of where the water is and the water depth and all that, so we can engineer it properly to dewater.
Yeah, if this can work out, I mean. I always thought this was kind of the missing type of house in North Ogden. We don't have that
Yeah.
kind of middle, I guess, middle tier house that is. For some people, maybe not their first home, might be their second home. For some people, if they're lucky enough, it might be their first home. but I just feel like it's kind of something that North Ogden has never had to offer. So I'm definitely intrigued. And the city benefits in the sense that we're not going to be maintaining all of the roads within there. So as long as it doesn't, I, I won't be the person on the council several years down the road if there was a problem with the HOA and they had to come and ask to
You'll be.
have us take over the roads. No. So, yeah, it looks interesting.
Any other comments, questions?
I mean, our only ask is, I mean, for us, we're doing a lot of engineering, doing a lot of work on this. And like I said earlier, we've kind of laid this out to where with land prices and what the owners are asking, this is kind of the layout more or less. I mean, obviously we're going to get tweaks as we engineer, but I mean, this is the general layout that we need to get with these private streets to make it work. I mean, it's for the lots to work and the setbacks to work, that this is kind of the piece of the puzzle that needs to go in there in terms of development. But if you think this can't work, then I mean,
We'd probably like to know now versus
yeah.
in 20 days when our money goes hard.
I know I'm talking a lot. Go ahead. Anyone else?
No, I just, like you said, it's a product that we don't have, and I think you
Yeah.
have to expand into different things. And with maintainability, that's, for some of these things, I was thinking about trash and stuff like that, but, that's not a huge thing. But I think the biggest part that we're looking at is making sure that it fits in the area it's in, and like we talked about that. So, I mean, if you address those things and, we figure out what Fruitland looks like, I don't see any issues, so.
And Garrett kind of spoke about this. I mean, it gives an opportunity for people to have options within the city because there's going to be homes around there that they don't want that massive home. They don't want that massive yard anymore. They want to downsize to something smaller that this offers. And again, it's kind of the same thing it offers somebody that was maybe in a townhome to make that next step into their own single family home and move into here. And then once they grow out of that, they can swap out with that person that wanted to downsize. It gives people options to, stay within the city, but have their housing Mets need is our kind of thoughts on this.
Got one.
Barker?
Quail Ponds, is that an HOA as well?
It is. Yep.
So my concern in this is coming from my other job. The tube means of egress, you don't meet the IFC requirement. Because you take the diagonal and then split it, and then you're over that distance, or you're under the distance. So I'm looking, I don't know if it's possible to tie into Quail Pond still. I missed earlier whether it is or not. And if it's not possible, then we work on it.
The one thing that we're going to propose is that access that the city owns there, where the storm drain goes out, is do an emergency crash gate and pave it across there.
Okay. I'm not a fan of crash gates.
I know you're not, but we knew.
I know, but they do work, so, okay. All right, so I'm
Just
glad
for
you're-
emergency only, right?
Yeah.
You're gonna have to have access to it anyway for clean out and whatever it may be for long term, but you could pay that across to have emergency access.
Okay.
there. But yeah, no, thank you for that comment.
John, you have any comment?
No, I mean, the hardest thing about these infill projects is meeting the expectation of the existing landowner and what they want out of the money or out of the property. And the people who are trying to develop the piece, it ends up being a balancing because I think we've talked about it before, but the rezone adds value to property. We talked about if you add density to an area with empty fields, then the value of the land goes up, the houses don't get cheaper. So that's the hard thing in these situations is, the nice thing is that the existing landowners in theory are gonna have their investment pay off, and they've been, is this annexed into the city?
No, it's not.
So they haven't been paying property taxes to us, so we haven't benefited from them, but I'm not sure that the $200 a year into property taxes would have done much for us anyways, or whatever it is, but it's just hard. The backyards of these homes, for example, will be about the depth of this room, so it'll feel like a townhome backyard, but that's still better than a lot of spaces. It does provide an additional housing type in the city, which allows people to move up or down the hill. And maybe free up some other housing stock where people who are maybe are in an oversized unit that maybe would move down to a smaller something. I don't know, it's just,
You look at Carson Jones subdivision, he built those backyards, couldn't be much
yeah,
equal than those.
the nice thing is these will be flat backyards. Where there are homes on the city, on the hill with a quarter acre and they don't have this flat of a backyard.
This has nothing to do with those, but it'll be interesting to see what this does for the demand for townhouses that have been approved. Like hundreds of them, because you prefer to have this
Yeah.
versus a townhouse, and we got townhouses approved to the end of the world.
One thing I'd like to say about the depth, so we are requesting that 15-foot setback, and that's just because it allows more wider variety of homes. There will be, a couple homes that are deeper that will make it a 15-foot backyard, where most of them will be shallower and give you that 20-foot backyard. It just allows more variety and opportunity for the end user to get what they want. They're not all gonna be there. I mean, I would say.
I think there's 2 plans out of the 6 that are the larger plan. The rest of them are 20-foot.
And those are the more expensive plans, so those are the less chosen. I would say the vast majority of these will be less shallower homes and not require that 15, but it gives the opportunity.
And then the other comment I'd have, Mayor, is that, if we keep, I'm not afraid of density. I think density is a good thing in the city, in the sense that it allows that variety, but we keep, every time we ask for home ownership and incentives and things like that, we constantly get pushback that says, oh, we can't, just trust the market. And I think the problem in Utah is the market is broken. Not that I want the government to control the market, because that's not the way I typically lean, but there's gotta be some way to provide some sort of attainable housing. And maybe it's like Nielsen Homes did, and we say there's this many units that go to teachers and firefighters and police officers, as part of the back and forth on these sort of negotiations. Not necessarily this one, but just generally, because if the market may eventually fix itself, and all of our houses will be worth way less than what they are now, and that's not the end of the world for someone who's been in their house 10 years. But someone who bought it 2 years ago, and all of a sudden their entire world is upside down because the silver tsunami happened. That's when all the retired people no longer need their houses. And so the 2 and 3 homes that some of them own all of a sudden hit the market. They're predicting the Midwest especially is going to be hit extra hard. Utah's probably going to be buffered from it, but those Midwest towns, you'd be able to move out there and buy a house for $50,000-$60,000.
That's my opinion, but I do think it's important. And I know we can't control this, but we do to some degree, because if they want this type of zone made, it's up to the legislative decision. So I think there ought to be affordable priced homes in here. And I think there ought to be options for first responders in here. And I guess if the builders don't like it, they don't build. But at some point in time, people need to step up and say, hey, and don't take this wrong, but I happen to be in a profession where I see what developers and house builders are making. It's pretty good, actually. Bless you. But I do believe that ought to be considered. I mean, you're creating a whole new zone here, and they can be built. It's been proven they can be built for affordable house pricing. I mean, it's down the street.
Well, what you're asking, I think, is not unreasonable, because if they want something that's not in the zone already, and where they're asking for not a variance, but something different, then, some consideration would be to ask for things like that. So I don't think it's out of the question.
Well, you're reducing setbacks by doing that. I mean, they've penciled this out, the business people. But if you didn't give the setbacks like they are, they couldn't put 68 units on there. And 68 units, using the ground increases the profitability of the project, much more than if it was 45. Because they're taking that land price and spreading it. And at some point in time, I think there has to be benefit to the citizens of the community. Not just to the developers and the builders. Just my feeling. I don't have a vote, but that's the feeling that there ought to be certain. In fact, I won't even have an attendance record pretty soon, but in any event. You know, I do think there ought to be some opportunity for what John described. And to your point, I don't think it's unreasonable, but that's the decision of the council. And, you know, it doesn't have to be all of them, obviously. They're gonna make more money off some and less money off others, and but it all balances out in the long run. Any other questions or comments, or? I think what I'm hearing here is that, you know, they're leaning, council's leaning towards having like something like this in the city. It's up to them if they want to have some consideration for making a new zone. It's up to the council.
Great. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate you. Thank you.
Thanks. We'll continue working with Scott and
Okay.
hopefully be back in front of you again.
I do
Thanks,
believe this, some housing is needed in the city. But like I say, if it's in the close to 500, I think I heard you say, we think we can sell for under 500.
I do.
That's,
That works. Okay, great. Thanks, though.
Thank you.
for another, so we didn't answer that. 6 months. See
you guys.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
A lot more excavation to do. Okay. The discussion, thanks Scott for working with them. We'll now turn the time over to Mr. John McCall, our city manager and attorney. He's going to talk about the transportation impact fee. We talked about this some time ago in a council meeting on, is it worth discounting the impact fees in commercial areas where the large majority of the travel is done on state roads, which they maintain. And does it contribute to economic development? So John, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Oh, let me make sure that we're sharing the right screen so people
We're
can
giving you
see.
your 15 minutes right now.
Perfect. This computer is being glitchy today. Okay, council. So just as a quick reminder, so what we're talking about is not every business in North Ogden is only patronized by North Ogden residents. This map from Placer AI, which is that new software that we paid for this year, shows that the highest zip codes that come to North Ogden and spend money are, well, the ones that are in North Ogden, 84414, which includes Pleasant View and a portion of Harrisville. And then 84404 is the next highest. Now, this doesn't give you, there is a map that'll show us the distribution, but the reality is it's probably a significant amount of Harrisville residents that are coming into North Ogden to buy goods and service. In particular, this map is for Arby's. So what I'm looking at and what I'm recommending is twofold. That the council, first off, that we redo our impact fees for transportation. It's been 10 years. That's about the end of how long you really want to go before you reevaluate them all. So I think we could do that process. It'll cost a little bit of money, but impact fee money is used to pay for the study. So in theory, it's a revenue neutral to the city over the long run. But in the interim, while that's happening, I think that there may be a justification for an argument that businesses that are located on UDOT roads, as the mayor mentioned, should be entitled to a discount because, for example, here, Arby's gets 23.8% of the people who come to the Arby's in North Ogden come from outside of North Ogden. And if you've ever tried to come into North Ogden on a road that isn't 2700 or Washington, you know that it is difficult. And so people go the path of least resistance, particularly for a business that's on Washington. And so my thought is that in the interim, the council could adopt an ordinance that would apply a 20% discount to businesses which are on UDOT right of ways while we go through this study. And the reason I think that's fair is that in this new study, I think we're going to specifically ask the question for them to analyze like this information, which is, you look at every business in the city and how many vehicles coming into the city never leave that UDOT road. And it'll be an estimate, it'll be a calculation, it'll be an observation that they use to make that decision. But I think that the data points for businesses like Arby's and businesses like, and I just don't want to name every business in the city, but you can see Arby's isn't on this list, but here is the percentages of people coming in from that same zip code, 84404. And you start seeing a trend that that it's starting to look like every business is in that 20 to 30% range of outside business. And so if we're not maintaining the road they're using, then I feel it's more fair. Sorry, I'm going to say it. I said it wrong because impact fees can't be used for road maintenance. We are not building the road that they're using. UDOT build the road. And so I think it would be fair to provide a discount to those entities because they're not actually impacting the North Ogden City road system. The reason why I'm not averaging these numbers and saying, oh, it's 25.75% is that a significant portion of those people might come into the city, hit McDonald's, and then go to their kids' soccer game or go to their cousin's house, and so they are still utilizing. And so that's why I was trying to come up with a round number, and 20% seemed to be a round number to start with while in the interim, while we go out into the study and get some more concrete information. And so it's kind of a gut check. If the council's agreeable with this kind of an approach, let's talk about percentages, talk about numbers, and then we bring back an ordinance. We need to do it a notice and period because the way impact fees are written, so that other businesses or other individuals could comment about why this is or isn't a good idea. In the grand scheme of things, this is the direction that all of those individuals who are challenging impact fees are starting to go, particularly transportation impact fees. Because the idea is if you can prove that the individuals or businesses don't impact your system in the way that the impact fee study says that they do, then you have to allow for the discount. I'd just like to build the pressure release valve into the system early, understanding that the reason they want to be here, these businesses that are coming into the city, is because they want to be near our residents. They're just also benefiting from the other quarter of a circle that's people in Harrisville, Far West, things like that. So,
Don, does this apply? It seems like you mentioned to me one time that if you waive or reduce an impact fee, you have to show where the money comes from to make that up. Because it's not like we have a lot of excess impact fees in the city. Does that apply here? For instance, would it be, because just about every business in North Ogden would qualify here. They're either along Washington Boulevard or along 2700 primarily.
yeah.
So every single business would qualify for that discount. Seems like we talked about that discount being tied to the amount of sales tax they generate to make up for the impact fee.
Well, so there is a second option, which is the council could create a policy where they say new sales tax generators are going to bring in sales tax, and we'll dedicate this percentage of what we anticipate them bringing in to pay the impact fees. And so that's the fee waiver. And this would be a built-in discount into the impact fee system that applies to all users. So banks and those who don't generate sales tax would benefit as well. The fee waiver system would be, you're going to drive an increase in other revenues, so we're going to use a portion of those other revenues to pay the city for those impact fees. They're two different things. Legally, we can do the 20% discount without identifying where the money's coming from, because it's based on them not impacting the system in the way that the study's designed. However, a great tool, the fee waiver is a great tool if we can identify that they're gonna bring in revenue, and so we're gonna offset the fees with that revenue.
Is because you used Bank of America as an example. I mean, nobody's gonna go on any road basically, probably, other than turning up Washington Boulevard to go in there. I mean, they may come down, but I don't, 2,300 or something like that, but I don't think you can say they wouldn't normally come down 2,300 anyway to get into the city. But you're waiving impact fees for businesses that aren't generating any sales tax, and so you give this 20% discount, which may be wiped out when you do the new study because of the cost of things, but I don't know, it just seems like to me that ought to be tied to, because you're giving all this impact fee away with no additional revenues being generated, and it's not like we're revenue rich in the city.
Well, and those are the two tools. The waiver based on sales tax is a tool the council can use for economic development. The discount based on an impact fee, like initial kind of gut reaction that we're talking about tonight, is an option. I would recommend that in our impact fee study, we ask the consultant to give us the answer to this question. Because I think that we are probably legally obligated to answer this question now based on the decisions and things that have come out. There's a case that went through the Supreme Court recently that says cities can charge for it, charge for the impact on UDOT roads. However, you have to give the money to UDOT. And so I would rather not charge the money. And I don't think our study shows that we're charging. It tries to kind of differentiate, but the reality is that those hub businesses, including anything that's a destination you can think of, is likely bringing people from Harrisville Far West and places like that in. My mom, for example, comes into Lee's and goes to Harmon's and Roy because they carry a product that she likes. And so there are people that make that trip. And so the business is generating it, but my mom takes the freeway, gets off on the UDOT road on Riverdale and goes up and then hops into the Harmon's parking lot without ever touching a Roy road. So that's the conversation we're talking about. And we have several options. One is we can create the impact fee waiver system based on sales tax generation. We can start the study process, and then typically whenever impact fees are reduced, this is going to sound funny, but cities typically will refund the last year's worth of the difference. So if it was $1,000 impact fee and then the new study comes out and says it's 800, then the cities would typically give those who paid the $1,000 back $200. That's not going to be the case in this scenario. The impact fee is going to go up. And so we're just trying to figure out ways to be fair in the interim while we try and figure it out. And it's perfectly acceptable if the council says, look, we don't want to give a discount until we know what that discount is, because it could be problematic to decide what's the line in the sand. Bank of America, for example, might argue, well, we paid it less than a year ago and you just started the discount, so we want 20% of our transportation fee back.
There would be an argument that someone comes and cashes their paycheck at Bank of America and then purchases something at one of our restaurants. But I'm not saying that's a perfect argument either. I don't think this is an exact science either. We got to be real with that. So if there's an 84404 zip code coming into North Ogden, there's a good chance they're also not using UDOT roads. Someone that lives by Ben Lomond High School, they're going to go up Mountain Road and they're going to wind their way into North Ogden and use all our roads. So, I think it's important to note that that's not an exact science, but it probably gives at least some good ideas.
And that's why I'm saying that I'm not going to go. I don't think if we're recommending, I wouldn't say 25% or 30%, because there are those trips where people are coming in off 1700 North in Harrisville And half their trip is on a UDOT road, half the trip's on a city road. So it's 20% was just a comfortable number. But
John, is it true that we have the highest or second highest transportation impact fee in the, I think we're,
I think we're second highest in the state. That being justifiably so. So our impact fee is significantly higher than St. George's impact fee. St. George's capital budget based on impact fees is 4 or 5 times the size of ours.
And they don't have ice.
And
Well, that was the question I had. Where does the money that, the impact fee that we're getting for transportation goes to?
build new roads or expand roads. And so
Yeah. Okay, that's what I thought.
And so the issue that, and I should have quantified the St. George conversation. All of St. George's roads that you drive on are UDOT roads.
Here's the fact, John.
All of it.
If we have the highest impact fee from the state, why would people want to come here and build? We already have problems getting commercial development here. So, you know, they do their homework. That's the problem that generated this discussion, right? We quoted an impact fee to somebody, even the corrected impact fee, and they looked at it and said, whoa,
This is more than we paid anywhere else.
I don't know if we can make this project work.
Well, and that's to me is the thing that needs to be, and not an appeal process, but the policy needs to be, hey, if it's something that's gonna benefit North Ogden ginormously, or even just a little bit sales tax wise, we need to figure that out. And how to work with them to come up with something that works for both of us. I mean, that's the whole point. I mean, that's why we're talking with developers for, what do they call it, Barker Depot? I mean, anyway.
Yeah.
You know, it needs to be done. I mean, Scott, you know, we're talking about it during planning commission meetings. I mean, it has to be done, but there's some things that just are, we can't push people away. And I think but at the same time, you have to have a thing that staff follows.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the.
And it's hard because we also have one of the most expensive water fees in the state now too, impact fees. But both the roads and the water system are more expensive to build in North Ogden than they are in a lot of other places because everything's on a hill. So when Mountain Road comes across, you don't just lay 66 to 80 feet of asphalt. You have to cut and fill 15, 20 feet and compact. And so it's hard. And so incentivizing these businesses who want to be near our residents, which then helps with the sales tax, is a vital part of the economic development puzzle that Scott's been working on. There's not a magic silver bullet that's going to fix all these problems.
So, John, without disclosing something we can't, what was the proposed impact fee for this project?
Well, for the businesses that,
For the big business?
for the big business, the wrong number, I'm trying to
No, the
remember.
right number.
Was it $660,000? I think was the
Okay.
impact fee.
Let me, I did a little research. Surprising to some.
For me, for sure.
Have a 5-year plan now. So I looked at similar projects, having a little bit of knowledge about that. They ranged 111,000, 225,000, 390,000, 259,000, 263,000, and 150,000. This particular type of business can't sell their product any more than where these others are located, or twice. I mean, and frankly, the discussion has been, I don't know if we make the project work at that amount. So then we lose a pretty substantial amount of sales tax increase. So here we are, the highest, trying to get economic development, and they've got to make things pencil out.
And at the same time, 20% is not gonna cut it either.
Now we'll see, John's looking up the real number here.
Well, but
I'm trying to
what I'm
find it
saying is
now.
that, yeah, just if we make a blanket percentage, whatever it is,
See, I did just a little calculation. Let's say somebody brings $150,000 a week of incremental sales to the city. We get our 1%. It's $1,500 a week. 52 weeks. It's 70-something thousand bucks, right? Of incremental sales tax we're gonna get, plus our part of the pool money, but just on a conservative basis. And if you gave them back 50% of that for 5 years, it wipes out half the impact fee. And John's already saying they're on state roads.
I found the number. I was only off by 300,000.
Oh.
So it's 377,500. But
Still-
still 150,000 higher than what they've paid in other jurisdictions.
It's a couple of years.
So, and yeah,
But
So you're saying, so to make sure I understand, the break even, if we were to give a break to a business that wants to come, the break even is how many years? If we were to, say we incentivize someone by, decreasing their impact fee by 100,000 or 200,000.
50% or 30%. I just
Yeah.
looked at this and said, that would reduce, this is just my calculation. I was just doing it in my mind. So you get $78,000 a year in additional sales tax, right? And if you gave them 50% credit of that amount, and the city took 50%, that's $39,000 a year, right? And if you gave them that for 5 years, that's $195,000. That's about 50%. Some formula like that. I'm not saying that's the exact formula.
but it's a win-win for both.
Well, because John's saying that most of our businesses are on state roads. We're the highest impact fees in the state. And we were actually wanting people to come and do business in North Ogden. So I'm just saying, to me, instead of just giving, and maybe John has to build that in there, that it can be done with a discount. With
Mhm.
council approval or something to satisfy the legal thing. But to me, it makes more sense to reward people who are bringing benefit into the city in regards to sales tax. Now, Councilmember Dalpass could be right. They might go and draw their $25 out so they can go buy a Big Mac.
That's an expensive Big Mac.
They're getting there.
Yeah, they're getting more.
and like Bank of America, well, the reason we have so many financial institutions in the city and particularly in our corner here is because the money on the hill, right? So they want to put a bank near the people who are using their bank so that they'll keep using the bank. So Bank of America, I would estimate, probably has a significant amount of customers on the hill because otherwise they wouldn't locate here.
They just go in downtown Ogden.
Yeah. Because that's where people with money work.
So to me, that's something I think you ought to consider is maybe a formula of that nature. That backs into whether it's a 30% discount. You can see where, John, 150% of the things I just read here. 150%.
Yeah.
So the average was really, would you say on those numbers? 260, 259, 150, 39, maybe 225,
Yeah.
or how much?
377.
377.
So
That's, yeah. I was gonna say it's 60 to 70% higher.
Just pointing it out, whatever you want to do, yes, sir.
I was just gonna say, so just for my clarity, so John's recommending 20, you're recommending
Different systems.
different systems.
And my recommendation is that we need to address it while we're doing the impact fees. And there may be a reason to address it now so that we don't lose potential partners in the immediate future.
But if we have a interested party that wants to locate to North Ogden, couldn't we, can we individually work with them and
factor out a deal? That's kind of what Mayor's
Yeah.
talking about, right?
It'd be easy. It is a complicated process, but the sales tax deal, it would be the same conversation, is that we recommend it and we could talk to the people individually and create an incentive for groups to come. The impact fee deal has to apply to everybody. And I would argue the sales tax deal, it'd be good to pick a number that works for everybody, right? Is it 25% of the sales tax increase? Is it 50%? I would just pick a policy that works for everyone, because then it gives Scott the predictability to be able to say, if you bring a business to North Ogden, for the first 5 years, we will share this percentage of the sales tax against the impact fees that you owed.
And you could pay that. If you look at how the state gives out money, right, for economic development, they say they're creating this many jobs, they're creating this much economic benefit, and they say, okay, you have to prove you're gonna do that. You just can't say you're bringing 500 jobs and not bringing it. So that it's kind of a payback situation, but the concept is they're not handing out free money just to be nice guys. They're handing out money to encourage economic development and benefit the state. And, I just don't know why we would give up money with no benefit to the city. I mean, that's the problem, in my opinion, North Ogden's had for so many years, is we thought rooftops were so important that we just gave everything away. And I just don't think that's what was being, I'm not picking on anybody here, John. I just don't think that's why officials were elected. They were elected to, benefit both parties.
And that strategy of rooftops, look down at Southtown. We add rooftops, the businesses will come. And we talked about it a little bit when Citizen Burns talked about it, but the Godfather Pizza might be coming, because there's a sign up there, but Scott has not heard anything from the Godfather's Pizza.
Or the gas station.
Or the gas station, which may be the same, but because the rooftops haven't driven the businesses to come. So it's a good point.
People don't want to believe me, but rooftops are important to have the population. But the traffic pattern is just as equal.
Yeah.
So you just wanna
Yeah,
I think it should be something significant on sales tax for 5 years. I mean, and I hate to say this, but it depends on the size of the business. Obviously, if it's a bigger sales tax generator, then it should get a bigger percentage off. Cause it's, if it's a bigger footprint, then it's gonna get a ginormous, fee versus something smaller that's gonna be a fee.
so if it's a Shields, it's not a Shields because we don't have enough space for them, but they might see a higher incentive because the 50%, let's say it's 50% impact to the city, would be significantly more than if it's
But it can't be more than maybe the entire fee.
Yeah.
Right, yes,
You can't give them.
I mean, it's not a parabolic curve that.
But here's the other thing, when you have existing businesses that want to stay in the city and they can't make it work, you may lose the wholesale tax.
So, yeah, and
So,
that's.
to me, you gotta. Just my point. But
Yes.
Yeah, some people just turn around and go elsewhere when they hit the roadblock.
when their lease is up, they go, doesn't make sense here anymore.
in fact, you've heard in this council meeting, for example, that Pizza Man has been trying to find a new location and they can't. There's not the right space for the right price in North Ogden. And so they're stuck in a building they don't enjoy and doesn't work for them, their customers or anything. It's one of those 16 pizza places north of 1500 North for 5 points.
And that's the key thing for those small businesses. And that was one of the things they were talking about when I was talking to those individual owners. Like, don't get too crazy, because then the price goes up for my property tax, and that means my rent goes up. Therefore, and I'm like, oh. So it's one of those things that there's that fine line for what they can afford and what they want their business to be.
And there's also the fine line, and I'm going to pick on the developers since they're not here in the room, but everybody wants less, they want to pay less than what they should be charged, right? And so there's gonna be a natural tension of, you know, and I like the mayor's point of, we're not gonna give them more than their fees. Or they can't have it 100% off, but maybe there's some sort of an amount. And in fact, the state actually, some entities used to just give it back to them in cash. Hey, we'll give you back this much of the sales tax you raise. And the state stepped in and said, oh, no, you can't do that. But you can put it into infrastructure and do these sorts of things to help make it
But
pencil.
John, I think there ought maybe a choice type thing, because if you look at the commercial piece of property we gave up to put a storage shed office on, right? They're not gonna generate any sales tax, but yet most of the people are on the state road. So they should get some type of discount, but to me, those who are generating sales tax are
Should-
benefiting
yeah.
the city, because if you feel it's pressure on the law, we could do both and let them take their choice, right?
Mhm. Or have a max, all your discounts can equal this up to 50%.
And can't stack your coupons.
You can't stack your coupon.
That was, sorry, little aside, Kroger used to do that in Ohio. You get money back.
Mhm.
Don't do that anymore.
Because they're not that.
So what's the direction you want to give John, council? Do you want him to put together some proposals? Are we in favor of discounting impact fees in two ways? One state road usage and the other one based upon incremental sales tax generation?
Yeah.
And have them come back with a policy? I mean, are you?
Yeah.
You feel that makes sense? That,
And also redo our impact fees.
yeah,
That's what he's.
which will wipe out all the discounts.
It has the potential to, although
We can still have.
We can still change it, yeah.
and one thing that
It's a
has
bigger
been,
discount.
one thing has been really nice is over the past 10 years, since we started this program, the city has received significant amount of external funding, which actually offsets. So like Pleasant View just barely did their impact fee study. The biggest road that needs the most work is Mountain Road as it goes across. And they've essentially said, hey, 95 or 93% of that is going to be covered by outside agencies. So it's not in their plan. So there may be a little bit of an offset, because I think we currently say that the city's going to pay for Mountain Road. And right now, I don't know that we'll have to. And so there's hopefully some discounts that will
Well,
come
you
off
look
of
at
our
widening
project
the
list.
road up to 3,100. The amount of money we got from
Yeah,
Wacom.
yeah,
So it's not all on our dollar.
yeah.
Okay, so can we proceed along that line?
Mhm.
Everybody okay?
So just to make sure I understand, sales tax plan on how we could offer incentives based on how much sales tax they're bringing in, a company. And are we saying go ahead on a percentage until the transportation impact fee is studied and figured out? Or are we saying we're not doing a percentage discount on the transportation utility fee for now?
I think we should look at it now.
Okay.
Impact.
Development's.
Yeah,
taking
the
place now.
transportation impact fee,
Right,
right?
you said utilities.
And,
Oh, I
and
meant transportation
I know.
impact fee. Thank you.
so, yeah, I think that's the impression I'm getting, but I'll bring back an official number for the council to talk about. And then, you know, we can talk about what it would have, or how it would impact. And I really would probably look back at those businesses in the past year on what they paid and what we would have gotten. The nice thing is that our transportation impact fee, which again is only for the widening or creating new roads, not for maintenance, is a fairly healthy fund right now. Most of our impact fees are doing okay. It's the other capital project funds for maintenance is where we're struggling.
Can you
So-
pull a bunch of businesses and anonymously show us information to say, here, here are businesses and this is how much they gave us this year. And this is how it would impact them if they were a net new business that was deciding to come into North Ogden.
Yeah, so like I'm not sure you even need to be anonymously, because right, like Smith's grocery store, you just take the square footage and apply our number, which are all public information. They came in before we instituted the transportation impact fee. So we could say, this is what the system would say they need to pay. And it would probably be somewhere in the $800,000 range, would be
But
my
the
guess.
city gave them a lot of money on the infrastructure.
Right,
which
there
we
was some
don't-
RDA
which we
development,
can't
yeah,
Do anymore
yeah.
because they don't have the money to this, although it looks like we may have excess ODA funds.
That was
another question.
Years.
Yeah, so anyways, I'll bring those two things back as far as official policies and start the process on our new impact fee study. It will require a budget amendment, just because we'll need to be hiring a consultant, but again, that'll be offset against the fees that are paid over the next 5 to 10 years. Well, each of them will pay, call it $20, for each trip to help cover that cost. And that's the way impact fees are designed to work, so.
I don't think we want to be known as the highest. Okay, thanks, council. John, I would like to discuss now an update on the Utah State Tax Commission's decision on North Ogden City property tax rate.
So as you all know, the state did not certify our tax rate. So we didn't get the 4.5% increase. I sent a letter requesting that we be allowed to appeal that decision to the State Tax Commission, hinged on the idea that the technical error was made at the staff level, not at the legislative level. And it seems weird that the legislative process is undermined by the staff, if that makes sense. They have sent back a response that said, not only will we not hear your appeal, we don't have the authority to hear your appeal. Jurisdictional, issue. And so, I have talked with the League of Cities and Towns and a few other entities. I'm not aware of anyone that I've talked to that is challenging the State Tax Commission. Everyone's just kind of licking their wounds and going away. That being said, I have not talked to any of the school districts, and they are
Significant.
They are, as if you've read that article, they're $41 million of the $48 million that are in flux here. For us, it's about 141,000. I did connect with Cameron Deal today. The league is not mounting any sort of unified effort other than to propose some tweaks to the law so it's more clear next year.
With an appeal.
And with an appeal opportunity, with the process better explained. And it's, so I would probably recommend to the council, technically this is, potential legal action, but it's nothing that we would hide from anybody. I don't think we should pursue it. I just think that the amount of effort that we would get out of it, even if we won, we wouldn't get the money. We would only get the percent as the base for next year, because the notices for taxes go out in 3 weeks on November 1st. That's not enough time to get a court to overturn the state commission's decision.
As a disservice to the citizens in my mind, frankly, because the council next year won't have the 141,000 that was built in. So most of these people most cities are just gonna double the tax increase next year. Yeah. Frankly. I mean, that's what's going to happen. The interesting thing that sticks in my mind is, you see all these comments, well, here's the law and the cities ought to have to stick by it. And well, the tax commission was supposed to either certify or decertify our rate by September 15th, and they did neither. But they don't have to follow the law, apparently, like we do, because the reason we got denied, and I'm trying to be calm, but
Mute real fast.
is substance over form. The substance, that slide made absolutely no difference. Just putting it on a screen for 5 seconds when it was published in the public, and it makes absolutely no difference. But apparently the state doesn't have to follow the rules, but the cities do, because they did not certify our tax rate. What was their excuse, John? It's some type of.
They said it's a directory instruction in the state code, not an obligatory. So, which is basically saying it's a guidance for the state tax commission.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because it's in the same code that says the city shall by June 1st do this and September 1st do this. And those are things they say are all obligatory, not directory. So, but this is the document. It just says, here's all the entities with their tax rates and the date and the time of their tax hearing.
Which was meaningless because it was already passed.
And yeah, to the mayor's point, we were the very last one, so no one could have attended additional hearings having seen this document.
And why would I go to Harrisville City?
So, but literally, if that level of conversation we just had about this document would have been enough to satisfy the statute, that 10 minutes or that 10 second spiel.
One clarification for any residents that are interested is KSL was reporting a higher number that we're losing out on. And the reason that KSL was reporting a higher number that North Ogden is missing out on is they were looking at the original proposed tax increase that we had put on that we had submitted to the state. So we're not missing out on 400 and something $1,000. We're missing out on 140
41, yeah.
41,000.
because we went from the 15% down to 40.
Yeah. So anyways, just, you know, again, kind of a head nod. Does anyone really object and really think we should fight this principle to the end?
My only
I'm happy to
thought,
do it.
John, is if the school districts went hard after it and we could piggyback on them, what would that hurt?
Yeah, seriously, I mean, it's, to me, it is a principle, and I hate just giving up, but at the same time, is it worth? If it costs us money, then yeah, no. But if it's time, and I'll be, you know, I'll help bird dog if that's what it takes, but it's the same thing as this stupid population thing. I'll submit some time for that, because that just annoys the crap out of me. And this is the same thing. It had no extra effort, it provided no extra benefit to the citizen. I don't know why state legislators in their infinite wisdom, obviously it's one person submitting a bill, no one else reads it, it goes through. Anyway, I think that's one of the biggest things I hope citizens take away from some of this, is that their representatives may or may not be reading stuff. And I think that's the one big thing I'm yelling and screaming at them, is that if you don't read each bill, I'm gonna yell at you when it impacts me.
Wait.
So,
My favorite comment, because I went to a couple of the committee meetings in Salt Lake, was the actual sponsor of the bill saying, we didn't add anything new. This is just, you got caught tripped up with the old rules, and they did.
Yep.
They added about 7 or 8 additional
Just to make
requirements.
it difficult. But
So,
Chris, I'd like to
yes.
give you some time for you to tell us how you really feel about this.
you know,
I totally agree.
so I mean, so I guess my point is
Yeah.
that if there is a that doesn't cost the city anything, and we can piggyback, and if you hear something, I'll be more than happy, because this really chaps things.
Well, I can reach out to the school districts and find out.
I think it's only really equitable.
And I could never run for.
For smaller government, passing 500 laws a year doesn't seem like anything,
But,
particularly when there's no substance.
and not to disagree, because, I mean, you saw Northview Fire we got denied too, but you have 3 weeks to get this done. And it's
No,
not gonna.
Yeah, agreed. It's all on principle, and it's to make things change. And if we can get that percentage already baked into next year, that's fine too.
Well, but on the flip, like, I agree with what Mayor said. Cities are just gonna double the rate next year. They'll make it up. And then we can point our finger right back at the tax commission and say the tax commission's the ones that did this to you, not us.
True, but it's just time
I know.
alone here.
No, I don't see the point in fighting it, because I think it's a losing battle.
Yeah, I think the only thing is the principle of the matter of that our legislators need to understand that they shouldn't be passing bills that have no substance to it and just make life more difficult for everybody. And that they ought to be knowledgeable about what they're voting on.
Let's
Okay.
just let it go, but let's write a letter as a city council and mayor that it goes to our legislatures and signed by all of us saying, please read this stuff. I mean, cause that's approaching the principle of it, that you're trying to make the process better at the higher levels of legislature. You know, so we let this go because it's not gonna be worth the effort, but let's draft up a letter and send it to them. That'd be awesome.
You know, if you have the time now.
I'll help you.
Okay, Blake and I will work on it.
Because I mean, you think about that, I mean, our commission is to look after the health, safety and welfare. So now we're gonna subjugate all the citizens to a double increase next year. How do you guys feel about that, Sandy?
Don't ask her, she'll yell at you.
She's the only person I could see,
I know.
but to me, it's for, I should.
If it just, you know, to Chris's point, I think if you hear anything where the big school districts or somebody's going to, and we can What do they call it when you give a brief to the court that we're in favor? Amicus?
Amicus brief, yeah.
Amicus.
I almost said Americus, but yeah, amicus.
Okay, John, thank you for that recommendation and thanks for sending the, Okay, any more public comments, for people online or, here in the room that would like to make comments after our discussion this evening? Anyone?
Can I just ask a quick question on that same subject? You would just. All the other entities, was it mostly that same
Yeah.
issue or were there a huge range of?
It was mostly that is but there was one or two denied because they talked too much after the public hearing. Because there's a separate thing now, it has to be focused on that. And some got denied for going
Jumping
on
into another
conversation.
topic.
Do we have a mole there?
Like this conversation the council's doing, that the mayor said, hey, we're done with the hearing, here's an update. And they said, oh, no, you're not supposed to have anything after the hearing. So.
Yeah, but most of it is the same reason.
So how did they find all this
I
out?
think you guys got it.
They audited everybody.
We didn't say the exact
Signing up the audit.
dollar amount.
Yeah,
Yeah, we didn't. So the fire district didn't say the dollar amount that we were raising. We said the percentage, not the dollar
yeah,
amount.
and you didn't.
And we didn't show the slide.
Realize that if that many people made that mistake, maybe something was wrong with.
Their training didn't include it. They provided training and that didn't even include that.
Nope.
Okay, perfect. Anybody else? I'm not seeing anybody online. So we'll move on then to mayor, council and staff comments. Let's do that in reverse order. Let's go with staff comments. John, thanks.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Got something?
No, sir. Nothing.
I was just gonna say that the discussion about what to do if, another entity decides to fight this and we kind of ride their coattails, I think that what I came to conclude as well this last week, so.
Thank you.
Continue.
Let's see, that's staff. Council?
RDA funds? I mean, I haven't seen anything happening.
And we did cut at least one check, I know.
I need an update.
Sure.
So two of the projects are under contract moving forward. That's DML campus with Northern Ice
And
Okay.
Big O.
and Big O, who's expended almost all of their funds on their exterior site betterments. Dave Means has two projects that he wants to move forward. He's working with it's like a homeowners association with the business owners association there. And then has an opportunity that will be coming back to the RDA as a request to move some of the funds allocated to another business that the business owner wants to dedicate money there. We've met with Sean Maynard. I've spoken with Dan Nixon, and that rounds out essentially all of the people who have been given money, but we only have the two contracts signed. So we're trying, but I think John and we've talked about getting a deadline of, in like 10 weeks, 10 or 12 weeks. If you're not under contract and moving forward, then you need to pull those RDA monies back and reallocate them.
And I believe that if we have any money left over, we could use it in the area that's being developed, isn't that in the RDA?
In the entire RDA areas.
Under the old rules, yes, 100%, because you can even do it projects outside of the area if you can show that there's a nexus and they benefit the area.
Which would. So we may have some money to.
Incentivize, yeah.
Okay, anything else from the council?
Yeah, I just have really quick. So that Teresa Kessinger on the kitchen, what they call it, cottage kitchen.
Yeah. That's
I
been
indicated
tossed
her
around
that I will mention that.
We invited her to come in. She'd like to come in and make a presentation to the council. And
That's been going on for years.
well, do I think we ought to either do something or not?
So
Don't disagree.
So on that one, every time it goes, the conversation always ends up being, this is a whole lot more hassle. And even if we allow the kitchens, every time we told everyone, hey, this is what the health code will require you to do, they always back out. And so that just dies. And then planning commission is like, well, if we don't have an applicant, then we can't keep pushing it forward.
Don't we have to give them that choice? I mean, she wants to come in and we tell her.
Yeah.
She's the one that's made the request, so
And
I
she's,
invited her to come and talk to the council.
she said there's several other cities, I talked to her today, by the way. She said there's several other cities that allow this. And we're kind of one of those that don't. I don't know the percentage of all cities that allow it and don't do the cottage kitchens. But yeah, let's just hear from her next week. And if the reason it's never gone forward is because they just got overwhelmed with all their requirements, that's fine, but we need to ask her if she wants to move forward.
Since we're paying your federal salary, should you be doing city work while you're,
You know, that's,
although Trump came out and said he's not guaranteeing payment, did you hear that?
yeah, no comment.
You can do my minutes for me this week.
Come on down.
Yeah,
Okay. We hope
we'll take that conversation offline, Mayor.
Free vacation.
Okay, I do have a few things. About an hour and a half's worth. Where are we on that study? We were gonna get back to Casey, the guy that's with Gentry. About,
Penny.
yeah,
Yes,
where are we
yeah.
on that?
We met as there's a subcommittee that met the initial Penny user group. And then they've sent over some user information to us, so it's started the city level.
Okay, so we're on that.
Yep, so
That was interesting, by the way.
I gave some information to John. The transfer station, which is owned by Weaver County, which is where all the garbage is. It's anticipated their business is gonna about fall in half. Because, the private equity firm that bought the new transfer station is buying up these haulers. So the county is looking at, whether they can continue that without long-term commitments from the cities, like 5 to 10 year contract commitments. To say that's where we'll have our hauler. But here's the problem that I brought up in my mind. So we don't have a lot of people bidding on our garbage as it is. And so I wonder if their conditions are, we're not gonna haul to that transfer station, we're gonna haul, or they get purchased. And we're sitting here with a 5 year contract with the county saying, well, our hauler has to haul to there, but I gave the information to John, they have some proposals. But we will be bringing that back to the council to see what you want to do. If you want to enter a long-term contract. This private equity firm has submitted an offer to buy the transfer station. But the problem is, they think the new owner is not going to let people drop things off like they do now, like paint and tires and big
Couches.
and things like that. So where would that go?
Up in the foothills.
Oh, boy.
I hate to say it, but I mean, how many times have you seen someone dump a couch up in the foothills?
There's a water. I don't know.
Those
So if you make it more difficult for them to dump what they want to dump, you're gonna have people doing stupid crap.
And these guys are offering a lower tipping fee right now, obviously, to get the business. But when there's no competition, where does it go to?
That's a
So,
Kentucky hauler right there.
we'll be probably inviting Sean Wilkinson and, John, who runs that, to come in, not John Call, but John that runs that. To make a presentation, because the council's gonna have to decide what they wanna do. Do they want to enter into a long-term contract? Or recommend the county sell that? Or just whatever.
And our current provider is one of those who has moved to the new station,
Republic.
Republic.
Where's the new-
I can't even think of another option. Where's another
Yeah.
landfill?
They're showing that even if they're not owned by this equity firm, it looks like they've committed to take their waste to Republic.
I think so, but if you look at ours, it still shows us hauling
9,400, yeah.
9,400 tons.
So where is it going then?
Where is this new transfer station?
It's just off Midland in West Haven. So it's actually about a mile away from the transfer station. It's just the other side of the freeway and then off Midland.
Interesting.
Oh, sure.
See, and they're thinking that the long-term plan for these guys is to get waste from like California, environmental type waste, which is big dollars. They don't want to do these little things that they're in it to make money and then sell stations. So anyway, we'll get a presentation. Also, and Ryan, maybe you could follow up with this. They had a good presentation about empowering women in our community at WACOG. They were talking about how they're not, women in our county are not really being, I can't remember the term, but there's some good things they have going that they're asking cities to participate in. You know, they have different spokes like domestic violence and, you know, food security and things like that. So could you look into that and get the information from the county?
Absolutely.
Maybe have the group come and talk to the
Okay,
council. It's empowering
women.
women, and it was really a good presentation. They had some statistics on what's happening in our county. It's not real positive. The last thing I think I have is this letter. Mr. Burns, you'd be interested in this. It's right down here. I mean, Citizen Burns.
Just Kevin.
This is a pretty formal group. Yeah.
Just Kevin, just Kevin.
I don't think so. But we had a meeting with the county, with the contract cities. Some of you may understand that the sheriff's office provides services to cities that don't have their own police department. West Haven, Washington Terrace, Plain City, places like that. And it's a heck of a deal. For instance, West Haven has more citizens than we do. They don't have their own police department. And they have, the ratio is like 0.57 officers there. And to me, that says they're using countywide resources to patrol these cities because there's no way they could do it and provide. So anyway, we had this meeting and they showed us, you know, what was broken out to the contract cities and what was broken out to the general public that's funded out of the county's funds. And it was really interesting. Like, for instance, none of the sheriff's salary is allocated to the contract cities. This is all allocated to the jail, I think, with most of the administrative staff. Well, I happen to know, I think the sheriff spends pretty much a good chunk of time on the contract cities, babysitting them, making sure things are good. And without that extra burden, I'm sure we wouldn't have as large administrative staff. So the Commissioner Bowles, who is overseeing this, asked me to write a letter. So I want you to know what I wrote. So you can either agree with me or be wrong.
What an option.
Those are the,
I'm stealing that.
Bowler, don't say anything.
I didn't, I just rolled my eyes really hard.
I know you were getting ready to say something. It was a joke, okay? Okay, it says, Commissioners, thank you for the opportunity to attend the recent meeting regarding the Weber County Sheriff's Department. The following are my thoughts, and I appreciate your willingness to consider them as you move forward with the budgeting process. What you're trying to determine is how they're gonna budget for the Sheriff's Department. So the first point is the largest budget expenditure in our city is public safety. I feel we have adequately budgeted for patrol in our city because they actually have allocated patrol officers, like they're gonna come into our city and patrol. You can comment on that at the end of this, Mr. Burns. So I said, I feel we adequately have budgeted to patrol our city, and the sheriff's office should not be allocating any cost to cities for patrol officers. When needed, surrounding cities voluntarily assist North Ogden. We also have our own K-9 unit, and it seems the number of K-9 county funded units is excessive. They have 9 K-9 units allocated to the general population. Bullet point 2, North Ogden City pays $49,157 to Weber County for CSI services, $22,000 for the Weber Morgan Strike Force, and $3,000 for a SWAT interlocal agreement. I'm unaware if all these funds go to the county, but contact cities should be paying their fair share of those costs for those services. Each of the above referenced areas funded by the county should be reviewed for efficiency and effectiveness. Third bullet point, the number of unincorporated residents seems to be increasing. The municipal fee charged to these residents needs to be reviewed. It should include charges for CSI services, strike force, etc. Because, you know, those people that aren't in the city that are getting services for free should be charged if they live in the county for municipal services. I strongly disagree that a portion of the sheriff's salary and other specific administrative costs are being included in county-wide funded positions. It was mentioned in the meeting that certain services provided by the sheriff's department are duplicated by the state of Utah. For instance, they said with child abuse things, sex crimes and stuff like that, they go to the state. They're dealing with the state, not necessarily the county. So we have duplication, I think. So I said, departments are duplicated by the state of Utah, and numerous cities use the state and not the county. If this is the case, those services should not be generally funded by the county. And if certain cities use such services, they should be billed directly. A fee for service mentality is something that should be considered by the county. A breakdown by city regarding the use of county-wide funded services may be eye-opening. We request a 5-year review by city of public safety services used that are supported by the county's general fund allocated to the sheriff. The county should strongly consider engaging an independent source to review the model used to determine general fund costs, contact city charges, and non-statutory department needs in the sheriff's department. This should occur on an ongoing basis, perhaps every 3 to 5 years. Additional clarification on the use of SROs as recreation officers and how they are partially funded by the school district would be helpful. Are the school districts paying the full cost for the use of these officers during the school year? And then the last one is, I just said, we appreciate the sheriff has a difficult job. Keeping the peace in Weber County is essential. However, let's identify duplicate efforts and determine if we can work together to reduce total costs. Anything else? You have inside.
I do. So nice letter. But it's the Weber County Sheriff's Office, as the sheriff is an elected official and department heads are appointed officials, and that wording matters. If you could correct your letter to reflect the Weber County Sheriff's Office rather than the Weber County Sheriff's Department. It's a thing when you're talking to the sheriff. I'm just gonna throw that out there.
Okay, I don't know if the sheriff will see this letter or not, but anyway, that's what I've written, because frankly, I don't mind paying our fair share, but if the contract cities are burdening our citizens with additional taxes in the general fund, I just don't think that's right.
You're correct. The cities with, as a citizen of North Ogden, helping pay for a police department, I do not think it's correct that we should be subsidizing law enforcement for cities that don't have a police department. They've chosen to go that direction. We should not be subsidizing them.
No.
They pay their fair share. You want to contract with the sheriff's office, contract with the sheriff, but you pay every dime, just like we do. We have to pay every dime of our expense.
Yep.
And each and every city should. And the sheriff's office area will be shrinking with the new city on the other side of the mountain. Don't know what they'll do, but that's that's either another contract or their own police department. So something else to put into the equation, but.
Yeah. Plus, they're gonna be patrolling this big development in Plain City now, right?
Allegedly.
They have 600 claims or whatever.
Yes, but at 0.57 officers per 1,000 residents,
Can't do it.
it's pretty difficult to do. It's not, we just had we're constantly having a big discussion about how do you support law enforcement. And that's not supporting law enforcement, hanging them out like that at 0.57 officers per 1,000 residents. And you know where their support's coming from when they need support out there. It's coming from surrounding cities. Yes.
And what I've seen, and Councilman Barker could maybe correct me on this, but you don't have to ask for help, they show up. Because it's that brotherhood of firefighters and police officers. You don't have to, when I said this, some guy, the next guy under Sheriff Arbon said, well, we were just in their city for a big fire. I said, well, yeah, but we don't plan on having a fire every year either. Okay, well, you know, I mean, did we ask them to come, John, or did they just show up?
I do not know.
There's a good chance you asked help and you probably needed it, and that's okay.
But we
That's
just,
because that's what we do with each other.
Yeah, it's just. what we do.
But day-to-day operations, pay your bills.
where did we just sent officers, I'm trying to remember where. Not too long ago, our officers went out of our city.
We went to Tree Mountain.
Yeah, up to Tremont, I mean,
Yeah,
so we send officers when they need help, so it's,
everybody
We don't
does,
bill them.
nobody can do it all on their own.
right? Everybody does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've sent resources to Salt Lake in
Yeah.
2020, you know, it all happens. We help each other out.
Yeah.
Day-to-day operations, pay your bills.
I'm sure we had officers in Ogden for the incident earlier this week at the moment.
They have.
Yeah,
those
today.
Yeah, and even just back up Ogden, I mean,
Yeah.
but we send officers all the time.
Yeah. And it's nothing personal. It is just, it is a thing that, Reed Richards taught me years ago. And he would, if those of you that know Reed, he has a lot of background dealing with cities and city contracts, and taught me years ago that the cities are subsidizing the sheriff's office contracts to the tune then of about 50%. The last time I checked on it, it was about 40%. So. That's a pretty good subsidy. Thank you, Ryan.
You're welcome, Kevin.
Because she knows too.
When I was reading it, I was like, I think that should be office, but I didn't know for sure the importance of it.
It is a deal.
So.
It's a deal.
Can I bring up one thing? I just remembered. So really quick. Neil and I had a really awesome meeting today with some of the Harlequins at AFCU. They now have the Barker Park information. And I felt like they were most likely gonna be making a commitment to us by summer about what they were gonna be contributing to Barker Park. But could I get you to send me, because I did not have a copy of Eric's map or the plan?
Yep.
Because she wants a copy of that.
Yep.
Please do that, and to my personal, that would be awesome, and I'll forward it to her.
Okay.
So things are moving along with donations, big donations for Barker Park.
And Don, it would be nice to, wrap up that policy on use of impact fees. I know Councilmember Barker, was correct in his assumption, we shouldn't allocate 100, but we do need to have a policy that's our intention to utilize those funds to get both park making along.
Yep.
So it'd be nice to get that wrapped up. Anything else? Okay. I would then look for a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Adjourn me. Oh, I move. Adjourn the meeting.
Yeah.